Hi, we are Programmers Incoming.
My name is Akshita.
I'm Brianna.
And I'm Akansha. And today we're going to present to you all our final project, Snakes and Ladders.
I was head of coding design.
I was head of testing and implementation.
And I was head of YouTube video and presentation.
To do this, we split up the work evenly into 3 parts, and we had weekly meetings 2 times a week to discuss our codes and integrate all of our work.
As head of coding design, I was in charge of the GUI, structure and layout, table structures, object-oriented programming, sound effects, and animation. My first job as a head of code and design was to design the graphical user interface. Here I will show you exactly how the user will be interacting with the game. So this is exactly how the user will be faced with the game. As you can see, there's a start button, a button for the player 1 to play the game, and a button for player 2 to play the game. There's a dice displayed here to see exactly what number is rolled, and a board over here to show you exactly where your position is in the game. On the side over here are some game instructions to guide any of the users or players in how to conduct the game. The next step in being head of code and design required me to work on the structure and layout of the code. In that, a major part of it required me to use tables and structures to make the game more flexible. That way, any player would be able to use the same code to play a game using any of the boards. Over here are all the initial values of the player's position, and over here are all the final values of the positions used to show the effect of a snake, a ladder, or nothing. I was also encouraged to implement some reach factors. For my reach factors, I took the liberty to implement various sound effects and animations that occur during various steps in the game. This block of code can be shown in lines 162 to 168. This code over here is used to produce sound when the player wins the game. This very block of code has been reproduced many times in the project to represent different actions taken by the player. Moreover, this small code segment, though it doesn't look very complicated, was used to define a very big part of the animation used in this game, namely the red and blue blocks that move according to the position of the players. The main tool used in the game, the dice, has been implemented using these few lines of code that are prominent in every step of the game. The next important step as head of code and design required me to implement some animation. Brianna, my teammate, will expand more on this topic, but this main animation I implemented in this code was to show the player 1 and player 2's position throughout the game. And last but not least, I was also required to implement some object-oriented programming. For that, I created a class definition that can be shown over here. This small piece of code makes a huge difference in the flexibility and presentation of the code. This not only increases the sophistication of the code, but makes it much easier for any user to manipulate the code. The concepts I've covered so far were what I was mostly concerned with. After this, Brianna, my teammate, will expand more on the testing and implementation of the various parts of the code.
As head of testing and implementation, the first thing I was concerned with testing scenarios. First, I tested the game completely to ensure that the code ran properly and that we fixed any bugs in the game. Some of the major issues that we faced while coding was that sometimes the files would overlap each other or pathways would differ, resulting in a code that didn't work. However, we were able to fix the code and get the game to work properly.
Yippee! I get to climb the ladder!
Although it wasn't hard to test, it was important to make sure that snake and ladder animations worked correctly because it's a crucial part of the game. However, the hardest thing to test was the block animation. We had to make sure that the board and the color blocks would not conflict each other so that the color blocks would appear on the board. As you can see, we found a board that works, that shows both red and blue blocks. Another crucial aspect that we had to test was making sure that the red and blue boxes moved to designated spots. Although we do think that we completed the project fairly and put a lot of effort into it, we believe that if we had more time and knowledge on MATLAB, we could implement a congratulatory GIF or an animation displaying a dice that rolled. Another implementation that we would have liked to include was the start message box that would appear before the player would start the game on a separate tab. And we would also love to sophisticate our game further and allow 2 players to play on differing devices. Now that I've explained my part of the project through testing and implementation, my teammate Akansha will walk you through the final part of our project.
Now I am going to explain some game instructions. As you can see, the board ranges from the numbers 1 to 100 in ascending order. There are snakes and ladders on the board. Whenever a player lands on a snake or ladder, a few actions take place. When a player lands at the foot of a ladder, he goes all the way up till the end of the ladder. And whenever a player lands on the mouth of the snake, he goes all the way to the tail of the snake. These driving actions determine who wins the game. Whoever reaches 100 first wins the game. Furthermore, a sound effect is generated every time a player lands on a snake or a ladder. I was also responsible for making the game instructions box on the side of the game. To figure out the logistics of the game, I created presentations and Excel files to ensure the smooth flow of the work that was being done and to get a preemptive idea of our project. Even though these are not really displayed on the game, these are very important to keep track of the progress that we were making. My main role in the project was to make the YouTube video and show our team walk through our project.
We will now play the game to show what the game looks like when being played. As you can see, a sound will play it to show initializing of the game. So as you can see, when player 1 clicks player 1 roll dice, a red box will appear to show his position. And also, for player 2, as he or she presses player 2 roll dice, a blue box will appear to show his or her position.
Yippee! I get to climb the ladder.
Also, as you heard, whenever a player lands on a ladder, a sound will play indicating that a ladder was landed on.
Down I go, bitten by a snake.
As you saw, similarly, we have a sad sound to show when a player lands on a snake.
Now, due to time constraints, we will fast forward the game to the end to give you a visualization of what happens at the end of the game.
Congratulations! Player 2 is the winner.
This is a representation of what happens when a player wins the game.
In conclusion, I believe that all 3 of us worked hard as a team to review the design and the code.
We also all worked together to test and run the game.
All 3 of us put our efforts hand in hand to complete and submit the project.